Welcome back. Now, this is going to be a special request about the M1 helmet. So, if you've never been a collector or anything like that and you just went straight into reenacting, some of the terms for a helmet is going to be extremely confusing. All right, so when we talk about the M1 pot, that's this right here. The biggest things to look for is going to be the seam location. Mine has it right here in the front. It's really hard to see, but if you look, there'll be a little gap. Next one's going to be the bails. This is a fixed bail helmet, which means those don't move. In later versions, it's a swivel, but it does the same functionality. When I talk about the nape strap, that's this right here. Those went away, I believe it was shortly after the Korean War, and unfortunately the Vietnam helmets sit totally different. So if you don't have the nape strap, that's going to be pretty obvious to anyone who's experienced in looking at what your helmet's doing. This here is the chin strap. Mine is around the back. And you also have the leather version, which is on the liner itself. Now, if you're just getting started for a reenactor, at least within the Thunderbird unit, I'm not really picky on what kind of helmet you use as long as it's something close to this. You want it olive drab, not the super dark of the Vietnam. You want some kind of cork texture on it. I don't care where the seam is because that's something that's really not going to be visible. If you're just getting started and you can't afford much else, I don't even need to have the bails or this strap in the front. You can literally just have this shell and this liner. The other thing you're going to have to worry about is this nape strap right here. Again, it sits much differently if you don't have that. Okay? Now, when you start moving forward, fixed bails are early war. They figured out that troops like to sit on them and use them as tools, and they ended up breaking off, so those would just disappear. The swivel bail made them much more rugged. However, those are mid to late war, if I'm not mistaken. This leather strap, just if you have one, cool. If not, there's plenty of photos without it. Don't worry about it too terribly much. Alrighty. You'll see this right here. This is called a follow me bar or command stripe. Straight up and down is an officer. Horizontal is an NCO. Just starting out, don't put these on. In my opinion, if we're going to be putting these on, you better be willing to lead people into battle. If not, well, it's just bling and you're basically lying to everyone around you. But that's just my own personal opinion. All right, moving forward, there are other attachments that you can put onto your helmet. Nets, there are parachute covers that you can add, there are burlap covers, all that kind of jazz. I opted not to because, for one thing, the nets they're a quagmire. There's about 4 or 5 different styles that I can think of off the top of my head. Most of them were procured from fishing nets and then just cut down, so there's no real standardized version of it. If you're in the snowy environments, you can literally use a bed sheet, a white bed sheet, cover it over it. The parachute silk is, again, it's an uncommon option. I wouldn't suggest it unless you have a really good reason. Burlap has been seen, and the reason why that these things are thrown on there is to break up the shine of the helmet. So at night or in longer distances, and this helmet is silhouetted, it's very obvious that it's a head. All right. So the cork kind of masks it, but if you really want to mask that, you're going to want to put something on there that breaks up the shape and eliminates the shine completely. That's why burlap is good. You want to leave it loose. Net's also a really good option. It's one of those things that breaks up the silhouette just enough to make it work. But it's also something that if you're walking around with generals and the such around you, they may not notice it. Now, how do you do that? It's actually really simple. You have to remove your liner, like so. You're going to put whatever covering you want over top of it and fold everything inside the helmet and get as flat as you can. Once that's done, and this might take some elbow grease, you put your liner and push it down. I usually push it from the crown and from the sides to make sure no excess stress happens to the liner itself, because these are usually not very strong. Once you're done, your liner will probably be sitting a little high, something like this, just because you have all this other crap shoved underneath it. But it should work after that point. And my little leather strap popped off. You'll see liner rivets, and that's actually how you install these leather straps. Sometimes they like to be a pain. All right, and that's back in, well, almost. So one of the characteristics of a saltier helmet, salty means used and experienced, and it's been around the world a little bit, seasoned, if you will. True front seams, the paint will start wearing because the metal is a different material. You can see mine is starting to wear, and if you look at some photos of some really older troops, this entire rim is almost silver because the paint is completely worn off. Not as quickly on the shell itself, but the rim will wear. You can make fake front seams basically by doing a little bit of JB weld on the seam in the rear and getting a nice pair of pliers and just kind of giving a nice little crimp. It makes it a little bit closer, but it's still not an actual one. So your paint won't wear the same way. I think that's about the bulk of a quick look at a M1 pot. So now when someone says we need to get some kind of certain bail or seam, now you should have some idea of what you're looking at. And you're able to start building your helmet better bit by bit. All right.